So thank you all so much for coming. In case you guys are not aware, LinkedIn is used now all the time. Back in the day, I'm an old guy. Back in the day, when you go to any networking event, recruiting event, you get someone's business card. But nowadays, everything's done virtually, so you connect via LinkedIn. So it's like Facebook, but for business professionals. So it's essential that as soon as possible that you create an account, right? And Garrett will be talking about that. And you can also use it. It's a very powerful tool. You can use it to network and connect with other people. Okay. So it's a really, really great tool. So let me introduce our guest. Our guest here is Garrett Shackstad. He works for the accounting firm Baker Tilly, which I believe is the fifth or sixth or seventh largest accounting firm in the world. So they have offices all over. It's a great place to work at. And so Garrett actually is the recruiter at UCLA and various other schools. He's a senior recruiter. I've got to know him a few years back. He's a really great guy because, a lot of people out there who work in the business world, they're just focused on their own needs. What I've noticed with Garrett is that he's always going out of way to help students, even people who don't necessarily work for his firm. He takes time to help them with various things, with interviewing or their resume or giving them general guidance. And he's a very busy person. For him to take time to do these things, it's a sign that he really cares about people. And for him to come do this workshop, he's not getting paid for this. Sorry, Garrett, you're not going to get that $200 paycheck after the workshop. No, so I asked him because he's just a great guy. He's a wealth of knowledge. So he's just coming here out of the goodness of his heart to help you guys. So really take advantage of this opportunity, learn from this guy, connect with him on LinkedIn, and enjoy the workshop. Okay, so Garrett, without further ado, please take over.
Professor Liu, thank you. Those are very kind words. That makes me feel great, and you know how to give an intro. So I appreciate that. Let me get a couple of logistical things out of the way so I can feel like an old person using technology here to set stuff up. Let's see here. So I'm going to share the screen. We're going to do screen number 2. All right. Quick thumbs up. Can everyone see the screen? Yep. Perfect. Sweet. All right. Here we go. Let's do that. Everybody in the COVID era loves QR codes, right? So if you guys wouldn't mind the QR code here, this is just kind of like an event check-in thing. It'll ask you to fill out a list of things. It's basically collecting some information from you so that if there are open positions that you'd like at our firm, it makes it easier for us to know if you're interested in a career in audit or consulting or tax or that different kind of stuff. So before we dive into things, just a quick background for me. My name is Garrett. I am a campus recruiter for a CPA firm called Baker Tilly. I grew up in Manhattan Beach, California. I went to Maricosta High School. I then decided I was going to go to a community college. Santa Monica was too far for me to get in my car and drive at that time in my life. The irony, of course, is now I come up to the West Side every single day of my life. So I went to El Camino College in Torrance, California. And then my wife and I were prom dates in high school. We both went to El Camino College. She is the much smarter one, and so she transferred to UCLA after El Camino. I decided to squander my savings by going to USC instead, which, while it had a lovely accounting program, was significantly more expensive than where my wife went to school at UCLA. So in the public accounting world now, we have many more people at our firm that went to UCLA than we did USC, but I enjoy getting to spend time at all campuses, and I have a special place in my heart for community colleges because I think it's a good system. So when you transfer, it makes things difficult. You're expected to you drop into UCLA in the fall quarter. There's a big recruiting push that goes on, and if you don't know what you're doing in that fall quarter, you can feel left out. And for those of us who, my mom was a school teacher, my dad was a firefighter. I have no one in my family that did anything remotely close to public accounting. So it's a lot of learning that happens very, very quickly. You're fortunate that Professor Liu's been around for a while and is very well connected and knows what he's doing here. So to prep you guys for your transfer, that helps. But it's tough out there. So let's dive into this a little bit. So the company that I work for, so we used to be a different company called Sklar Milner. We were bought in November 2020 by this firm called Baker Tilly. I got a call in February of 2020 saying we're getting bought by Baker Tilly. unless you know public accounting really well, you probably only know the big four firms. And even then, if you're not in public accounting, you may not have been exposed to any of them, right? So I, like you, once I figured out who this firm was, or okay, I've got a name, I Googled it just like anyone else would, and discovered some of these same facts that are up here. So I was pretty impressed by what I saw there. And so this is after our merger in November of 2020. When I joined the firm in 2013, our predecessor firm, it was, maybe $60-70 million in revenue, maybe 230 team members, and 4 offices total. So for me, from 2013 to where it is today, this is a huge difference. If you're curious about learning more about our firm, feel free to email me whenever you want, or just check out our website. There's a lot of really good content there. All right. Okay. Here's our agenda for today. I'm going to keep things relative. I'm going to try to cram a lot in a short amount of time. My sincerest apologies to everyone. I am incredibly long-winded and verbose naturally. And so to try to cram in a lot more of this in a short amount of time, you're going to get a lot of my voice and a lot of me talking relatively quickly. Okay. So the first item that I want to talk about is just kind of social media's emergence and kind of importance as a macro level thing. And the reason I want to do this is not to patronize you all. You guys all are very smart and probably are using multiple different social media platforms for various purposes. So I'm not condescending and trying to tell you, hey, this is a joke. Have you heard of social media, right? It's interesting because it's still historically speaking, a new thing. And so talking about LinkedIn, it helps if you talk about the whole platform of social media and where we are with that. So we're going to start there. Then we're going to move into, okay, what the heck am I supposed to use LinkedIn for anyway? So we'll talk about the uses of LinkedIn. And then lastly, we'll talk about building a profile, which, by the way, is remarkably simple. What's on LinkedIn basically is a resume. So we'll compare and contrast the resume and the LinkedIn profile. All right, let's do it. Okay. What do you guys think are the most popular social media sites? Take yourself off mute and just belt out whatever you think.
Instagram.
Okay. Yep. Certainly up there.
TikTok.
What do we got?
TikTok.
TikTok. Yep.
YouTube.
Facebook.
Yes.
Facebook.
Yes, of course. All right. Those are a few of them. It's kind of fun to look at this now. Like if you just do a quick Google search for like top social media platforms, there's a bunch of different stuff that stands out. And I had lunch with a friend of mine and I was talking about this presentation today, and monthly active users, shoot, even the like vernacular and the marketing terms that we use that now seem like, oh yeah, that makes sense. MAUs. Yes, of course. We all know what those are. Like, guys, this hasn't been around for that long. Like, what is this? All of these companies have been around for what, like 20 years, 25 tops? Look at how many billions of people are using these things that did not exist 30 years ago. All right. And so we're still learning about what the applications are. So I'm just in awe of how quickly this many people started using these platforms. Because at first it was just kind of Facebook or it was just YouTube. But then you had Instagram pop up. And of course, Facebook bought Instagram, right? Then TikTok and Facebook Messenger, and you have all of these. I don't even know what a lot of these other WeChat I have heard of. Let's see, QQ. I have no idea what this. I have no idea what a few of these are. LinkedIn is the business one, right? This is the one that we know that we use it for business networking, for getting a job, for all of that kind of stuff. And I do think that's the purpose there. Now you could use some of the other sites as well for this, but they all start to take on their brands and why people use them. Right. So I just want you guys to be aware that, and you all already know this, but there are so many, these are new. There's so many different things to use for this. And LinkedIn is just one of them that's out there that's just as much of a social media platform as the other. All right. So that's great. We know that there are a lot of people looking, but what are they looking for? Right. Like as an employer, when I use LinkedIn, what am I using it for? What am I looking at? When I look, do you guys ever, how it has the tracker where it tells you like, oh, so-and-so has looked at your profile today? What am I looking at? Why am I looking at? What am I doing there? Right. It's kind of funny when that happens. And then the other part of this though is, what do you want the world to see you as? I love curating my image depending upon what group of people I'm talking to because I love trying to be different things, right? I grew up playing in punk bands and in garage bands and playing very loud, aggressive, obnoxious music that's very confrontational and very aggressive, right? Sometimes I want people to see that, right? And other times I want you to see a very clean-cut, generic, bland, vanilla-looking CPA recruiter type because I work in the business world and I don't want to offend anyone. And I love being able to curate what you get to see. And so LinkedIn is a fun one where you have control over what you want to present, right? So just keep in mind as you're building your profile, what are people looking for? So we got to make sure we have certain basic information in there. But also let's have a little bit of fun. What do you want them to see you as? So, okay, so what are the uses of LinkedIn? Agenda item number 2. So according to LinkedIn, here's what they think are the uses of LinkedIn, right? This came from LinkedIn's site, all right? I'm gonna focus on just a few of these for today. I think these are the most important ones. You're looking to gain exposure to hiring managers and recruiters, right? We want recruiters to see this, and believe me, we use it. I use it, and you can use it as a research tool to learn more about an individual or a company. And then also, if you're looking for jobs, I used to think this was just like, oh, you go to monster.com and look for a job. You put your resume up there, and that's what you do, right? Turns out there's a lot of job sites out there. Indeed, or Monster, or Facebook has even gotten in the mix. LinkedIn has job boards. Like there are a lot of Handshake is in the mix, right? There's a lot of job boards out there. Right? So to me, these are the big 3 things that I think the easiest things to understand for the use of. So what are they looking for? What is our hashtag content here? And let's not overthink this, guys. This is really simple stuff. This is the stuff that went on a resume. This is the stuff that we're looking for on LinkedIn. All right. Any questions here? Does this make sense? This is all pretty. Does anyone see anything in here that you're surprised at?
I'm surprised that the phone number is listed because
yeah, that's an old one.
Yeah, with data, especially in your email and technology, those bots are strange.
Yep. And we'll get to this in a second. Very astute observation of you. On LinkedIn, we're not going to do the phone number or email address. Even I don't do that. And I put my phone number and email address on literally the first thing I did when I jumped in here is put my email address out here, right? But LinkedIn would be too much for me. I think that's a little bit too much of information. So really I'll show you in a second how this is really just kind of your name, your title, your position in the company you work for, right? So this would have been what we put on a resume. This is a little bit different on LinkedIn, but for the most part, this is basic stuff, right? Anastasia, thank you. That's a very quick observation. I've even noticed a lot of times on resumes, people don't always put phone number anymore, which can be mildly frustrating. If they're not responding to an email, I'll have to send them a text message, right? Okay. Do hiring managers look at LinkedIn? Yes. I don't remember what website I pulled this from. Maybe it's 85%, maybe it's 95%. I don't know. We all use it to look at candidates. And I'm not looking for to be very honest with you, I'm not looking for stuff to disqualify a candidate. I'm not looking, oh, this picture, they have tattoos on this picture. They're out, right? That's not what I'm using it for. I'm using it just to try to find something that we have in common so that when you and I share a conversation, it's not super awkward that I feel like we do know a little bit about each other before the conversation begins. But I promise you, all of the recruiters at firms will look at LinkedIn. Your employers, your future employers or potential employers will look at it. This is another one. You'll see different stats on this. How long does somebody look at your resume? How long do they look at your profile? How long do they do this? It's quick. How quickly we make impressions based on a resume, based on a LinkedIn profile. When you visit a website, how quickly do you go, this website hasn't been updated since the 90s versus oh, this has got good content on there, right? Coming soon in the 2012 tour of Canada, the Rolling Stones will be playing here, right? You got to update that a little bit. All right. So get to the point quickly. And by the way, guys, whether this is on a resume or whether this is on LinkedIn, do not ever find yourself posting content that looks like this. Michelle, when you see this, what's the first thing that goes through your mind?
I don't want to read all of that. It's
all of it, Michelle, you're kind. I'm not reading any of it. I see that and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm out. Keep this in mind when you are the one creating the content. right? So stay away from the wall. By the way, I believe this is, if you just Google wall of text, I believe this is one of the things that will pop up. Okay. So as a research tool, there's a really cool place in the search bar in LinkedIn. If you just click it when it's blank, there's a filter thing that pops up, and here are the different filter sections. And I wanted to share this with you because, and this is mine. This is some of the stuff that I use it for. A lot of times I'll look for something. I want to see people that went to UCLA that currently work at Baker Tilly, or that currently work at Deloitte, or that right? You can start using the combinations to figure out who are the people that work there, and do I know any of them, right? Am I connected with them? Do I know people, right? This filter is a great way of looking up people at specific companies, what colleges people went to. Does the office okay, I'm joining Baker Tilly in Los Angeles. If I draw up current company, Baker Tilly, location Los Angeles, and filter it for UCLA, are there any UCLA alumni that work here? It's a great way to get to filter out some information about either the company or the people that you're meeting. Does that make sense, guys? I know that's pretty quick to go over this, but this filter section is one of my favorite ones. I frequently will use, I don't use the location as much. I'll use current company, past company, and school almost all the time. It's pretty fun. Okay, so use it to look up specific people and to look up companies, right? A lot of times, oh, how many people are in Baker Tilly's Los Angeles office? Okay, there's only 20 some odd that are popping up, or oh, I looked up Deloitte and there's like 1,000 people, right? It can help you get an idea of how big a company is, or how big the office is, right? Or what locations they have, right? Or any content that they're putting out there that you like or don't like. For specific people, I'll use this a lot to figure out what college they went to, maybe where they went to high school. So I'm starting to build a timeline of, okay, they went from here to here to here. Does that make sense? I encourage you guys, if you know who your interviewer is, or you met someone at a networking event, I encourage you to use this part of the function to learn a little bit more about them. All right. And last and certainly not least, the job search function. A lot of jobs are posted on LinkedIn. It's a great place to go looking for jobs. There are, as I mentioned, there are a lot of job boards out there, but LinkedIn is a good place. And if you have an up-to-date spiffy profile, it makes it super easy to go apply for jobs. Make sense?
Got it.
Ripping through this. Sorry for the speed here, guys, but I want to open it up to questions in just a couple minutes. So, Anastasia, as you pointed out, the phone number on the resume versus the LinkedIn profile. Here's where we're going to get to some of the comparisons. So to me, a resume and a LinkedIn profile are basically the same thing. There are some little changes. Some of them are important. Some of them I think are just kind of superficial. But on a resume, right, you're going to have, this is where you have your name, your mailing address, your email address, your phone number, and your LinkedIn link can be on here. Obviously, we're not going to have that on the LinkedIn profile. We're already here, right? And that top section is where we're going to have some university information. Now, when you're in college or right out of college, this will go at the top of a resume. Once you have some career experiences starts to move down to the bottom, because at first in your career, the fact that you went to UCLA is a big deal, or USC, or wherever you went, right? This is the big thing that you want people to know, right? I don't have a whole lot of career experience because I'm still a university student, or I'm right out of university. As your career progresses, you start to move this down. Our next section, you're going to have your work experience, right? Name of the company, your job title, dates of employment, what you did there. Then you're going to have any extracurricular activities or clubs. Now, the interesting thing to me is these are both sort of experience. Just because one is work and one is volunteer doesn't necessarily make them different. You still learn things here. And last and certainly not least, you have a section on hobbies and interests. This is where you can put some fun, funky stuff like, I don't know, connoisseur of electric guitars, right? Scuba diving enthusiast, right? So let's move on to the LinkedIn profile, right? We're going to go through the same stuff again, but in LinkedIn. So the aesthetics and layout and look matter of what you're doing. Luckily, LinkedIn helps us with this by having kind of a more generic approach to it. A resume, people have all sorts of different formats. For LinkedIn, it's pretty much the same format. You can change the colors and you can change the pictures and that sort of stuff. But the basic layout is pretty simple, right? How do you guys feel about this? When you guys visit websites, how quickly do you make up your mind as to whether or not they've paid their poor IT people enough money, or if they haven't paid them enough to develop their websites and build out what it looks like? How much does a bad website bother you guys?
Design is everything.
Right? So it's important. So when you get to put in some effort here for what yours looks like. Now, this is a little old for me. I think this is actually a few months ago. But this is what my page looks like. So I just kind of copied and pasted some stuff out of here. And Anastasia, you're right. I don't have my phone number or email address here. I've always thought about adding my email address because I actually don't use LinkedIn Messenger a lot. But if you send me a message, I'll always give you my email address. I just don't know if I'm bold or brave enough to offer it up here for everyone, right? So first name, last name, location, title, and company, right? You've got all of this. And I have at the top, you'll have I think you only get one school that you get to list here. Sorry for being a coward and putting USC instead of El Camino College, which I have done before, right? So this top section is like that contact information. The next, there is an education section here, right? University name, major, degree, Now, we're not putting our relevant classes here anymore. We're just putting this stuff, right? Under the experience section, this is where you could have both your activities and clubs and also your work experience, right? So this is just, hey, where I was, what my position was, the dates of employment, and you can add what you did there. I chose not to, right? The interest section at the bottom is a little bit different. You don't get a whole lot of freedom to type in whatever you want. This is where you can sort of follow, much like Facebook or Instagram. You can kind of follow different companies, which does signal a little bit as to what you're interested in, right? So obviously for me as a university recruiter, I have a lot of different universities that I kind of keep up with and let people know that this is what I do, right? Guys, does this make sense? And I know we've sped through the profile building portion of this very, very quickly, but last and certainly not least, this is what I did when I first built my LinkedIn profile, because I started filling in stuff and I was like, okay, what sections do I not even know about on the LinkedIn profile that I need to fill out? So I just started Googling stuff, right? There's some different tips in here. One of my favorite ones that I did included the link for it. So you could do like linkedin.com/ I think Garrett Shackstad now will bring up what the profile is, as opposed to, you know how there's like a long number that comes after it? You can change that URL link so that's a little shorter and cleaner. But I encourage you guys all just start Googling tips for building a LinkedIn profile. So to recap the agenda real quick here, and then I'm going to turn the floor over for questions. These were the three sections that we went over, right? Social media as as various different markets within it, what the uses are for LinkedIn, and what the profile is going to end up looking like when you build it. So last and certainly not least, if you guys want to use one more QR code for you, because we don't do enough QR codes, this is a digital brochure for us, for the company, for Baker Tilly. Huge warning. This is already out of date because we keep acquiring other firms and growing. So some of the numbers about how big the firm is and all that kind of stuff may be a little bit out of date already. Thank you guys for listening. I'm going to open up the floor right now. Any questions at all that you guys may have, I can hang around for as long as you like. Does that sound good?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I actually have two questions, but I wanted to get your thoughts on not including details of what your job entails on the resume. You just list. Yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Like, what's the pros and cons, or yeah.
Yep, that is a really good question.
Garrett, before you respond, as people are trickling away, can everyone look at the chat box? Greatly appreciate you guys can fill out a survey before you leave. It should take you less than a minute.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Anastasia, that's a really good question so the pro is if you've got strong brand recognition in the places you've been or worked for, people just kind of go like, okay, you worked at a CPA firm, like, okay, I have an idea of what you did there. Where it comes into play a little bit, I think, and Professor Liu, correct me if you think I'm wrong here, at a more experienced level, we're looking for specific things that you know how to do within the tax profession or within the audit profession. Early on, we're not as much concerned with it. Now, it cuts both ways, right? So Anastasia, if you say, hey, I just worked at, I'm making this up, I worked at Starbucks, right? I can guess at what you did at Starbucks, but I could also ask you in the interview, oh, I see you worked at Starbucks. What'd you do there? What were some of your favorite memories? Or you can tell them, hey, I did this, I did this. Sometimes employers like to see numbers served, 100,000 customers a day. Obviously didn't do that, but you can start giving them the information that you want them to know, that you know how to do these things, right? So sometimes, and for the name of space, I'll limit the things that I've done there. Sometimes if I feel like I need to explain what I was doing there, I'll draw that out. For my profile, I decided I don't really need you to know, like, if you're curious about what I did there, just ask me, but I just want you to know kind of my title and what I did, or who I worked for over the years.
Thank you. My next question is, the courses on LinkedIn. From what I remember, I think those courses, I think they were brought out by lynda.com. I can't remember, but I was just wondering, like, how much weight does, when someone says they took a course in LinkedIn and they're proficient in such and such, like, how, does that really hold any weight, when it comes to recruiting and actually getting the job?
For me personally, no. Like I'm not looking at that. I don't know of a lot of recruiters from the university level that do, because for us, we're going to look at. I'm going to start with the names of the places that you've either been a part, either a job, a volunteer organization, or the university that you were a part of. I'm not necessarily going to look at the courses that you've done or the certifications or any of that. I might a little bit, but I'm going to ask you a lot about it. And that it's a double-edged sword, Anastasia, because on the one hand, you can have recruiters that won't ask you about that stuff, right? And so those are the ones where you do want to give them that information, because if they don't ask you about stuff, you don't have a chance to explain anything or add detail or context or nuance. For me personally, I almost always ask people about this because I'm aware of the fact that where you have been, there's a lot of detail and nuance. And especially if you're worried that, okay, maybe a community college doesn't carry the same weight as a four-year university. Again, for me, having been a community college student, when I see that, I immediately understand some of the road that has been traveled to get to where you are. And for me, I like seeing that, whereas maybe some other recruiters, I've had people tell me, hey, you don't need to put your community college on your resume. And me being an argumentative, stubborn hardhead that I am, was very proud of the fact that I went to a community college and put it on my resume as a way of saying, like, yes, this is who I am and what I've done and where I've been. And yeah, I'm not trying to hide this. I'm very happy with it. And if you have a problem with that, I don't particularly want to be associated with your organization.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, guys, what else is out there? Did you feel like this was okay? Hand raised, go ahead and ask.
It's Laurentia.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, when you are inviting somebody or when you want to add someone as a connection, is it necessary to like write a message? Because I don't know, I just get awkward, honestly, when I do this. Like, do I just send connect, or do I say, hey, this is Laurentia, blah, 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 like.
That's a really good question. And I got to be honest with you. So that's not one that I think about a ton and I'm being selfish and a jerk here. From my standpoint as a recruiter, if you don't, like, if I send a message out to connect with you and you don't accept it, like, okay, fine. Right? Like, so that's presumably these are people trying to get a job somewhere. It's like, if you're not going to accept my invitation, okay, fine. But you're right, Laurentia. It's a really good point where, like, if you just for me, I carte blanche accept all requests. I know that's a thing where I've been warned many times by different colleagues or other recruiters, like, oh, no. Like I don't just blindly accept every connection. I do. And so like, that's not a big deal for me, but you're right. It's a really good point. If you want to add a little bit of a message, hey, we met last night at this event. So good to see you. Would you mind connecting with me? That's a really nice, easy way of building the network instead of just like, I don't remember meeting this person. Next. Right? Like, so I would recommend a small little message if you don't have much of a relationship built with the person. If you already have a good relationship with the person, you've met them dozens of times, and you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm not connected with my brother on LinkedIn. Yeah, you don't need a message, right? So that's how I would handle that one. I would, in the business setting, I would add just one sentence, maybe two, right? We're not writing a novella here on meeting the person. Just, hey, so nice meeting you and chatting about blah, chatting about scuba diving. Would love to connect with you. That's it.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, please.
I agree with you because I'm still learning, but I do find that a lot of people follow a lot of people, and there's like, they have 500 plus connections.
Yep.
And you can't just remember. Sometimes you can't remember who you met that person from. And so that last comment gives you a refresher, and it gives the person a refresher. Say, okay, I don't remember that person, but at least I know that we met at this Zoom meeting tonight. So that's,
yeah. And that's Anastasia, that's a really good one too, because that carries over to networking events. And I feel bad because I get to meet a ton of people, and I feel like a jerk for not remembering everyone, right? But there's a lot of names. And if you help me just a little bit, I may not remember exactly the meeting with you, but I'll remember being in the same place and being there and remembering certain things that happened, or it helps out a little bit and it jogs the memory a little bit. And then you build the relationship from there. So for sure, whether you're emailing someone after having met them or you're messaging them on LinkedIn, like, be gentle. help us out a little bit, right?
This is Professor Lou, I would even say that, when I go to networking events now, when I talk to someone, right, we have a conversation, then I would just ask them right away, like, can I add you on LinkedIn?
Yep.
Everyone has a smartphone, right? Take out your phone right now. Then and there, ask, because what happens is at these networking events, they're going to meet hundreds of people. If you don't take action right away, they're going to forget about you, right? Everyone's really busy. So just on the spot, right? Just if you have a good conversation, just each of you pull out your phone and get added, connected right away.
I had a question.
Yeah.
I was wondering, personally, Garrett, how much do you use LinkedIn? How much of your time would you say you're spending
every day? Every day. On the short end, 20 minutes a day. On the long end, an hour a day.
Do you feel like there's a certain, amount of time that students who are going through the recruiting process should be spending on it? Like, how often should you devote time to making connections, having conversations on LinkedIn?
That's a good question. No, I don't think from a student's end, I don't think you need to obsess over it and spend a lot of time. The reason I use it a lot is I'll use it as supplemental research on candidates that I'm meeting. Sometimes there's different information on their LinkedIn profile than is on their resume. And so I like looking at that. So, or sometimes this one's tricky, and we just kind of talked about it a little bit. Okay, I look up Joanna's profile. Oh my gosh, you're connected with my coworker, Kevin Lee. Like, oh my God, how do you know that? And it's like, oh, it's just completely random. I asked Kevin, I have no idea who that is. I just accepted a request. I have no idea who that is. And that happens a lot, right? But sometimes there's really fun connections where it's like, yeah, I went to high school with that person and played on the same soccer team that they did. It's like, wow, right? And so a lot of times for me, I'll use it so I can connect people that have something in common. So for example, if I want you to come meet someone from our firm and go out to lunch with them, Joanna, are you at Santa Monica College, UCLA, or somewhere else?
I'm at UCLA.
Okay. So if I had you meet somebody at our firm, chances are I'm going to have you meet someone that went to UCLA. Are you studying econ and minoring in accounting?
Yes.
Yep. So if I were to do that, that's where I would say I would use it for research to go, okay, Joanna's going to UCLA studying biz econ and accounting. I'm going to connect her with somebody from our LA office here that also went to UCLA. Obviously, if they work at Baker Tilly, they studied accounting. And so that's how I'll start to use it, or the connections or any of that sort of stuff. I really use it primarily as a research tool, not so much as who's connected to who. Because as Professor Liu pointed out, there are people with just hundreds of connections, which sort of like that doesn't necessarily mean that I know that person super well. So yeah, so for you, there are two ways I would do it. Number one, if I know I have an interview coming up, I'm going to look up my interviewer and see what information I can glean from them. Everybody has an ego. If you tell the person you're interviewing that you looked them up beforehand and you were really impressed with blah, 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 or you saw something that you really, they're going to be flattered that you took the time to look them up. Even if they come across as grumpy pants, it's like, oh, whatever, I don't care. Like, they're happy that you did it. Okay. So that's one way I would do it. You're looking up who's interviewing you beforehand, so you know a little bit about them. The other one that I would do is, I want to learn more about Baker Tilly. I'm a UCLA student. I'm going to pop onto LinkedIn and pull up Baker Tilly people that went to UCLA. I'm going to look through that list and decide based on their name or what they look like in their profile, who I find more approachable than someone else. So, okay, I'm interested in an audit, and I want to talk to somebody who is an associate or a senior associate that works at Baker Tilly that went to UCLA. So I'm going to filter it to that. Then I'm going to send them a message. And that message is going to be, hey, I know this is cold, but I'm a UCLA student. I'm interested in an audit position at Baker Tilly. I hope you don't mind, but I wanted to reach out to connect. If you have a minute for me to pick your brain about transitioning from UCLA to Baker Tilly, I would love to meet you and learn more. Right? So that's what I would use as a student. I would use it for getting to know who your interviewer is and finding people that you have something in common with at a company so that you can network with them and ask them questions to set up some sort of coffee meeting to learn more about the company.
I see. Thank you. That's really helpful, because I think sometimes it's overwhelming, like the amount of things you can do with LinkedIn.
It is. And I feel like approaching people cold is terrifying. Right. And so we're begging for some sort of, oh, I notice you have hair and two eyes. So do I. we're looking for something a little bit more substantial than that. And the great thing about the universities are that's everybody, like, we've all got some university tie-in. Even if it's, let's say you look up Baker Tilly and it's somebody that went to USC, like, oh, hey, I noticed you went to the better school, right? Right? Or vice versa. Like, I already did that in my intro, right? Like, talking about my wife going to UCLA. So there's all sorts of little tidbits and information that people are freely putting out there for you to consume. And so when you reach out to them, it gives you kind of something a little bit warmer than just like, hi, I have no idea who you are. Can you talk to me about working in audit at Baker Tilly?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
I have somewhat of a follow-up question.
Yeah.
So are you less likely to hire someone if they don't have a LinkedIn profile and you can't find that information that's easily accessible?
If I have their resume, I'm like mildly annoyed that I can't find a LinkedIn profile. But like, that's not a deal breaker by any means.
Okay. Good to know.
My absolute former UCLA or UCLA alumni, he's an audit manager named Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee is one of my favorite people that works here because when he was a first-year staff, he worked for me, and the guy is great at his job. He doesn't have a LinkedIn profile. like, dude, what are you doing? You're killing me. You're the person I like using for a lot of interviews for students to meet, and you don't even have a LinkedIn profile. You're killing me. Also, don't try looking on LinkedIn for Kevin Lee. There's a lot of them.
Can I just jump in really quick?
Yeah.
So I would suggest, to answer the student question that she just asked,
yeah.
I would say at the very basic level, just set up a very simple profile. Just put a picture on there, put one of the places you work at. It doesn't have to be extensive.
Yep.
I think the important thing is always just take baby steps, get it set up. And then that's why I tell my students, get it set up first, and then you can add it to it later on. But the fact that at least you have a presence on there, just because LinkedIn is so prevalent today.
Yep.
To have something on there as opposed to nothing, that would be a big plus. Okay.
I agree.
So you consider that.
The other thing I would do on that is look at other people's LinkedIn profiles to start aesthetically finding what you like or don't like. Start borrowing some ideas. I've done that a bunch. I've seen color schemes or fonts or something that I like. And so, okay, I'm gonna borrow that. Guys, any other questions at all? All right, how are we feeling about LinkedIn now? We feel like you still feel a little icky about networking and the transactional nature of networking here, or do we feel like we're happy about, we're going to put something out in the world so that when they see us, we feel good about it? Work on those profile pics, right? I got to update mine. Mine's 5 years old now.
Well, Garrett, I want to thank you. I know I'm beyond the originally designated time, so I really appreciate you going, beyond your, we're 20 minutes over. So thank you so much for making the time to come. And for the students, if you guys don't mind, please use that link to quickly fill out the survey. I'll greatly appreciate it. But again, Garrett, thank you so much. I know you're a busy person. The students all really appreciate your time, and hopefully they will be able to set up their profile if they haven't done so already, or at least, upgrade it and then connect with you. And perhaps in the future, there might be an opportunity at Baker Tilly or some other firm.
Yeah. So and if you guys have any questions, feel free to email me 24/7. Trust me, I'll never get upset. I don't get up when people send it to an email at 2 a.m. I'll just read it when I wake up. That's all. All right, guys. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night and hopefully see you all soon.